Hello, my name is Professor Sylvester Henderson. I am the CEO of Professor for Life Incorporated. Here at Professor for Life Incorporated, we interview famous academics and professionals all over the world. And I am so honored this morning to be able to interview Dr. JoeCanton, who is the Vice President of Canton Associates and a Ph.D. holder from the University of California, Irvine. Welcome, Dr. Canton.
Thank you, Professor. It's an honor to be on your program, and I appreciate your invitation.
Thank you. Dr. Canton, could you introduce yourself to the digital media academic world? Tell us where you grew up. Please share your academic journey and tell us about all the different colleges that you attended and where did you graduate, if you would, please.
Well, let me briefly go down my journey. My journey began in a slave shack in Utah, Alabama as a child. I grew up with my grandmother and until I was 7 years old. So I started from the rural, then I moved on up to the city. Matter of fact, I ended up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, in a place called Lumpkin Bottom, Alabama. Lumpkin Bottom in the city of Tuscaloosa. It's humble in terms of class. I would say I came from what most sociologists would consider the lower class. And out of that background, because of the legal structure in Alabama, which was a segregated system, I grew up in that particular environment as well. That is what gave me a background that have given me the understanding of my presence in the universe. So when you ask me the complexities of being a person, a product of that environment, which also give credence and possibilities to where I could have hope for the future. And this is where I ended up in terms of my education. I completed the high school requirements in the segregated school, where the folks had high expectations. I had people who represented me in all phases of academia, the sciences, the math, the English, the literature. It was a well-rounded, broad education that I had to learn to reject some of it as I grew, because we had a civics course where we talked about the Constitution and we talked about justice for all, but we didn't talk about slavery. And I think when I look back in terms of my growth within that environment of the post-slavery period has been my experience politically. My education covers the areas because I thought it was very important in terms of education. I still do. I don't think the acquisition of degrees was necessary in education because it depends on your drive and what it is that you're interested in learning. And I've always been a lifetime learner. So I started with an AA degree from Trade Tech in LA, where I worked my way as a janitor through school. And so my early days of education was a work-study program, an AA from Trade Tech, BA from Cal State LA, Sociology with a social welfare major. I have a master's degree in urban studies that was connected to an internship of the Coro Foundation in the 1970s. Then I went on from there to get a Ph.D. from University of California, Irvine, where Dr. Joseph White, a renowned clinical psychologist, was my mentor. And I acquired a Ph.D. in comparative cultures, which is ethnic studies, by any other name, but that's what it was during those days. And it was an exciting time for me to learn from a brilliant man.
Wow, Dr. Canton, you have had quite a journey, but the great thing is that you came from humble beginnings and you still remain very humble, sir, but with a lot expansive knowledge that you've gained and experiences, which brings me to my next question. Can you kind of describe your work and obligations regarding some of the professional posts you've held as follows? I know you worked at the Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations for San Francisco State University. Then you worked as a director for the Senior Martin College Preparatory School somewhere over in San Francisco. And you've been associate professor at various universities and colleges. Can you talk about all those experiences and what you learned from all those experiences?
As you pointed out, Professor, my academic background and professional background has been varied. As a human resources specialist, I started out in the city of Santa Ana, which is called the Golden City, as you know. It's considered the Golden City. But I was the personnel analyst that was in charge of the recruitment program, and the goal was to recruit people of color into the police department. And so my research project actually dealt with the results of that particular study. After I completed 5 years there as a personnel analyst, I promoted myself into a position at San Bernardino, the city of San Bernardino. I became the director of personnel, as they call it at that time, which is now called Human Resources. I also was responsible for negotiating contracts with general employees as well as police and fire. So I had an experience to negotiate contracts, administer contracts for a major city. And then from that experience, I came to work at San Francisco State as the director of personnel at that time, Human Resources now, where I was also the designated representative for the president of the campus at that time, Dr. Chai Wei Wu. I was his representative in carrying out the labor relations program at the San Francisco State University. And I'm proud to say that in my role there, I had the lowest grievance rate of all of at that time they had 18 campuses. I had the lowest grievance rate of all of them. And I attribute it to a good program of bringing management and employees together to work out issues before they became grievances. And we were able to work out a number of problems that both employee and management had seen without dealing with it and having to go through a grievance process.
Wow. And you also worked, I believe, at the S.R. Martin College Preparatory School.
Yes, that's my work in, nonprofit organization. I had to get an education as to what that meant.
Okay.
Nonprofit means nonprofit. Okay. But at the same time, I took over a program in San Francisco that was called Fellowship Academy. Fellowship Academy was one of the schools that have been around 22 years here. That was when I took over in San Francisco. It was a Black Christian school in terms of its curriculum. It had a very progressive curriculum, but they fell out of favor with the donors, and as a result, the school was closed. Now, it wasn't the donors' fault. It was more of the administration of that particular effort. Then I went and spent some time with Miss Mary Martin, who was head of the S.R. Martin College Preparatory School. And I spent 3 years there as that program began to falter, but they produced some great students who went on to do some great things.
And tell me some of your experiences, if you would, Dr. Canton. I know you worked in some very high stressful situations, because I imagine working as a director of personnel human resources today, as opposed to dealing with unions and things such as that, very contentious perspectives and the realities. I'm sure that has caused or did cause some development in terms of your abilities to be a great negotiator and a person who understands how to respect differences. So all of that, how did that impact some of your teaching at the various universities and colleges with some of your students?
Well, one of the things that I found is that I'm a problem solver. Conflict is my thing. I can work with folks who have conflict. So I go in with an understanding that there's conflict. What I do is bring folks together and let them solve their problem. Okay. And so I was very successful in doing recognizing that conflict is part of the organizational behaviors that exist in organizations. I was one of these people, as you can see in the background, I was a bridge builder, to help people understand that they're working in the same environment. How do you bring harmony and at the same time stay true to the mission? And as a result, I found that stress is relieved by understanding that conflict is part of the system.
Okay.
So I'm not saying I was immune from its impact, but I also understand that it's a natural part of organizational behavior. The question is, how do you resolve conflict and have others to solve the problem? Matter of fact, when you bring parties together, I find that they have the ability to solve their own problem.
Wow. Now, how did that impact you? How has that or can that impact one's instructional skills when you worked as a professor as opposed to a director or manager?
I think the manager's role, many times, folks misunderstand it. I really don't understand management. Management is actually, you are, matter of fact, you are expected to develop your employees to get the best out of them. It's a different approach to management. Some managers manage with fear. I don't. I think that you get the best result of people being the best that they can be, and your role is to enable them to do that. If it's through training, if it's through development, if it's through giving those individuals challenging assignments, which I was given to do in many situations, but that they thought was, quote, incompetent. I didn't see that as a death knell for somebody's performance. Incompetence means that you need to develop your skills. And so who's going to enable you to help you develop those skills necessary for you to fulfill your duties within the organization? I think that's a responsibility of a manager who has the ability to teach employees to be their best selves. Okay. And still understand policies and how policy impacts their performance in an organization. And to resolve that, well, for instance, I go in an organization, I don't look at folks' personnel files. I want to see who they are, who people are, from my perspective. Some managers have a different kind of thing. They go into the file and say, oh, gee, that Mary is incompetent. She can't do the job. Well, then you raise the question, Mary been here 10 years. So what's going on in terms of dealing with making Mary to be the best that she can be? So I see it as a different approach. Some managers find that sort of like you're catering to employees, but I see it in terms of development. Your role is to develop the best team that you can get and have individuals fulfilled in their work environments.
Wow. And
I find that has worked for me.
From here. Dr. Canton, can you share the pivotal moments in your journey that shaped your path as a scholar and leader in various fields, but especially your field as it relates to ethnic studies and diversity?
I think one of the things that's been helpful for me is out of the baseline of my education as a child is what shaped me as an adult in terms of learning, in terms of people who gave me the support to give me the skills to be the best that I could be, and that is reading, writing, arithmetic, and how to get along with people. Those were the three bases of school that I attended as a youngster. So as a result of that, my self-esteem was always on the other side, I believe I could do anything. I believe I could fly. So because the folks that incarnated, they incarnated that level of self-confidence in an environment that they prepared me for a world that I would not live in, but I would be in a whole different part of the American society and be able to function. So they gave me the skills in order to do that. Reading, writing, arithmetic, and how to get along with people. And having a good sense of who I am as a person. And of course, my earlier development, I've always worked as a kid, even in my early environment. My grandmother used to tell me, she says, go out and get a job, go out and mow lawns and cut hedges and all that stuff. And I learned that was my interaction with the white world. Like, hey, if you want me, this is what I can do as a laborer, and this is what you promised to pay me. And I learned to confront folks over pay pretty early as well. But in that environment, you would say, "Oh, gee, man, you're a black male. You should be scared." No, you're aware that you are, but at the same time, the threat didn't deter you from moving forward and persevering. Because I think if you worry about the impact of being in this system, well, we end up in the psych ward very easy.
Absolutely. Very much so.
I don't know if I answered the question there.
You know what? You shared your perspective, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
What inspired you, Dr. Canton, to pursue a career in academia and leadership, and how do you stay motivated in the face of so many challenges in society today?
And what I found, Professor, in the role of teacher, lecturer, teaching assistant, and those kinds of roles, gave me an understanding that I am history. I am, well, as Dr. White used to tell me, because I pursued this doctorate degree at an age that most folks would be doing some other things. And he said to me, you are Black history. You are Rosa Parks. Yeah, you know about
Absolutely.
The back of the bus. So you're speaking from an observant with an understanding of how folks have prepared you for a future, not only in that environment, but any other environment that you would have to operate in the world socially. So I had those social skills as well. And I had a good sense of who I was. I knew I was not, we were called in those days, it wasn't the N-word. It was, matter of fact, Dick Greger said it once, he was called that N-word so much he thought it was his middle name. He always amused me when he said that, because I think we're the only folks on the planet that have gone through names attributed to us that we've never attributed to ourselves. And for instance, these terms never separated us from our landmass, which was Africa. We are descendants. Matter of fact, I tell folks we are Americanized Africans. And as a result of being in the American environment, we certainly was cut off from our cultural roots that impacted who we are within this society as well. So when you ask me the question as to my preparations for that, came from the people who taught me early. I had people that were role models in my life that was incredible. The principal of my school, Ph.D. He spent 43 years in the Tuscaloosa school system. Dr. Hughes, a fantastic educator. He had two prongs. He came from the Booker T. Washington model, where he says, you learn to build things and then you can philosophize about them after you built them. So my principal was the same way. And he had high expectations of his students. He provided a learning environment for folks like me who like to read and do all that kind of stuff. To the kid who likes to repair automobiles, a person who liked to make furniture. We had that kind of confluence in the education environment. You could go either. He had something for both types of students. So everybody was involved in the education process. Dropout rate was down to zero because they would come get you. If you dropped out, they find out why and find out how come you weren't at school today. That was a different kind of school than you got now, because you can drop out now and folks never, you're gone.
That's right.
But that's the kind of environment that impacted me to be who I am today and to be concerned about service. That was always the notion. Who are you serving? Who are you helping somebody? How are you helping people today? And even though you may think when you're talking to people, when you're involved with people, and of course, I'm always giving freely. Only advice if you ask. I don't just volunteer advice. People if they ask me, then that's a whole different approach. And so that's what shaped me. Leadership, I've always had. I was never a follower of people. I wasn't always out front. I know how to follow people, but I also know how to follow the right people.
That's right. Well, you know what? One of the things that I'm really enthralled with is your Ph.D. in comparative cultures. It kind of talks about the differences of expressions and perspectives in different cultures and how we see things, our values, our expressions, our learning behaviors. And so perhaps in your upbringing, one of the expressions in your family and community is stickability and hard work. And you definitely are a person who've achieved that. So I want to commend you on that because you have really come through a lot of difficulties in your life, and you've achieved, and you sort of stayed the course, and that's a wonderful thing, Dr. Canton. Can I ask you a question? What do you consider to be your most significant impact of your work as Vice President of Canton Associates, and how does it align with your personal values?
Well, the impact that I've had with Canton Associates, of course, this company was founded by my wife, Dr. Marcia Canton, and so I'm the vice president. But she started this program, and we in turn developed training program for managers and supervisors in various organizations. So throughout the years, we've served as consultants to city officials who want to better their organization by developing the supervisors and managers. And so we go in and develop courses that's designed specifically within that work environment. So they're getting hands-on experience. And our motto is if we can change 2% of the behavior of your managers, we've earned. I mean, you've earned. You got your money's worth. If we can do 2% chip. And we believe that we could, and we demonstrated that we have done over the years in the various cities and organizations that we worked in. What I've learned is that that's still a teaching role, that's a facilitating role. I see teaching as a facilitated process because you're working with people who have great minds and great talents. The question is, how do you reach those great minds and great talents, get the best results? And so I've convinced over the years managers that it's cost effective and show that the so-called diversity in your workplace is an asset as opposed to a liability. And so I come at them not from a moral standpoint because I don't think organizational folks, are the big time executives and CEOs, they don't operate on that basis. They operate on cost benefit. So what I've been able to do is show them the cost benefit analysis of inclusion versus exclusion. That because you're bringing people into your organization with new ideas and ways of getting things done. And of course, in my earlier wild days, when I approached the folks in the organization, I would approach them. I'm a change agent. I like to step on the gas to see, do I have power? Do I don't? If I don't have the power, then we need to talk about it. But at the same time, I can come at you when you have no resources. You say you have no, it's not in the budget. Don't bother me because I'll go out and do some things out in the community to do my job. For instance, when I was doing the outreach recruitment, I was anchored in the community of the disabled, African American, Mexican Americans, everybody out in the EEO field at Orange County that I could reach out to. I was able to do that, and with no budget, by the way. Because sometimes folks want you to complain about no budget. We don't have enough money. I'm one of those guys that says, hey, I can get it done and you don't have nothing to give me. and ultimately they give me money to fund things, but at the same time, so.
Okay. Well, that's an amazing, innovative strategy for not only management, but to kind of see in management as an extension of the classroom. Management is really an extension of instruction. The thing is just that you're inspiring others and you're simply sharing oversight with others and helping them to come up to their highest potential, which helps me.
Professor, I have one comment to make there too. Yes. Is that I've always wanted the best employees around me. When I say best, I mean folks who are skilled. I never sought to have folks working with me that I considered lesser. I wanted the best. And as a result of that, I don't have insecure issues. Some managers do. And as a result of showing their insecurity, they hire folks who have less skills and therefore they're less productive. I'm just the opposite of that.
Well, you know what? That shows that not only you're a fair person, but you are also professionally inclusive. And that's a good thing. Dr. Canton, how do you approach mentoring young professionals and scholars, particularly those from underrepresented communities?
Professor, what I do in the community, I work with people that are aspiring professional people. I have one young person that I've been working with that changed her career field later in life to become a social worker that's working now in the VA, but at the same time now this person is working to get her license. And I'm more or less the person who says, yes, you can do it. You have the skills to do it. So I mentor people just ad hoc. I mean, it's just in conversation when I let them know. And once they see that they can accomplish great things, that they have great things in them, skills from other jobs are transportable to another job, and also look for the higher performance level and as far as policies and procedures is concerned within an organization. So in my conversation, it's the same as I tell any student. You can do what I do. You can be whatever you want to be. If you decide that you want to be what it is that you want, and you move toward it with the perseverance to stick to it, with the sacrifice you're going to have to make, because there's always a cost. And if you got to be willing to pay the price.
Wow. Dr. Canton, you have shared this morning some wonderful principles about academia, motivation, perseverance, determination, success, analysis, diversity, all these things you've talked about, maybe in different ways, but your life journey has displayed all those wonderful principles to me. Do you have, can you discuss some of your future goals and innovations and share any final thoughts you would like to communicate to our digital world?
Yeah, my future is to develop a podcast. And what I want this podcast to do is to assist employees in how to be court ready, how to operate with toxic environments, and to have a discussion about that. Because as you know, most American workers are dissatisfied, and among the most dissatisfied is our people. So the question is, I've been working with folks I like to have that discussion made. How do you deal within those issues that you find in your workplace? How do you go beyond the blockages that's going to be in your way? How do you deal with that? For instance, I always tell the folks who hire me it's going to be hard to fire me because I'm not going to make it easy. I'm not going to make it easy because I'm going to be on time greeting you when you come in every day.
That's right.
And so I encourage folk in the workplace, and I encourage folk who want to enhance their careers and move forward, and also look in the direction where, like, I don't see retirement ever until they lower me down. And when they lower me down into the ground, I'll be going into a new program. I certainly, as I tell folks, I'm in God's class of 1942. We all in a class, and we all will graduate at some point. So I'm looking forward to that future, and also I help folks. My wife allowed me to go into her space with the students that she have down at the Davis Center, Senior Davis Center here in San Francisco, where I have spoken to people my age as well, and bear witness to some of the health issues that they're presenting, to let them know people do end up surviving those things. Things that you consider as you're growing, as you're aging, like falling, for example. You said they had a class on falling, and I learned so much because I had failed twice, and it helped me. And I would bear witness to what the students be saying. So the seniors, would gravitate to that understanding as well, because I bear witness to if you should have knowledge of that, because it can happen, and you don't know how and when. Today, America is at an inflection point of dealing with an issue that's been so long in terms of a solution, and that is racism, white supremacy. And that challenge will present and will continue to present opportunities in the world for change.
That's right.
And I believe that we all must join in to deal with the notion of democracy, the dream. We've all shared that dream. I know as a person, being an African American, we've never had democracy, true democracy, because here we are still trying to find the right vehicle to vote. But yet we find those who are antithetical to democracy. What they do is go out and find ways to suppress. But I believe that when it all is said and done, that these issues will provide great opportunity and for change. Racism will not leave without screaming and yelling.
Wow. Well, as the CEO of Professor for Life Incorporated, I want to thank you, Dr. Canton, for all your knowledge, your inspiration, and I hope to see you sometime in the near future.
Okay, sir, and thank you for the honor of being on your program.
Okay, God bless you. Bye-bye now.
All right, bye-bye.